Brian Alvarez has been reporting on the unrest in the AEW locker room, has he not? On the situation where it's more last minute or more hectic, or nobody knows what they're doing, or they want to know more about what they're doing, or do you have
Yeah.
the quotes available?
Well, I have a little bit of audio I could play here. This was tweeted out by Meltzer Says What, and then you and I were bombarded by people sending it to us. And there's nothing he says here that's wrong. I guess the question is, why say it now? Who's it impacting now that they're complaining to Brian Alvarez that he didn't hear it from in the past? Because these are the same things that we've heard in the past. But let's play some of this audio. Stop it whenever you want. This is from Wrestling Observer Live, February 29th.
Very frustrated because they don't find out the Tuesday before like some people do. I mean, some people will know what they're doing because, like, there are a couple of matches usually advertised in advance, but most people are showing up the day of the show and they find out whether they're doing anything or not. And there's very little communication. People are I've been hearing about this for months. People are very frustrated. Like, they show up, here's what you're going to do. Lots of people will complain, and it gets changed, which is also a big problem I hear about all the time. People don't want to do something.
Okay, hold on a second. I know he's going somewhere else with that, but let's not let him get too far ahead before we. I agree that you should know when you're going to a television taping whether or not you are working on said taping, or whether you might be just talking. If you need special gear, you know what I'm saying, that you come prepared because you know. Well, you always go prepared. You would always have your gear, but is anything, extra special going on that I'd need to know about? But I mean, I think that there's the generation gap has between years prior and today's talent has not only widened, but also it is added to by Tony's lack of goddamn control and or order at this point. I mean, he's got his graphs that go out horizontally and diagonally and vertically and whatever. But if you know, as long as you know I'm not being flown halfway across the country or all the way across the country to sit around with my dick in my hand, and they never booked me to begin with and just didn't tell me, that's not fair to the talent, right? Although that's the old way of thinking because we were always on the road. Since these fucking guys only work once or twice a week, fuck it, if he wants to spend the money to fly them across the country and then just sit them in catering, I guess that's up to him. They're making guarantees. I'm thinking about when the talent's time was valuable. But you don't need, unless you're at some legitimate level or there is some big angle or major important piece planned, you don't need goddamn a week's notice on this. And apparently, as we're finding out here, and we'll continue with the clip, the talent, no matter who they are, have a lot more goddamn input than they ought to, and whether they do something or not. Not even how they do it, or can we tweak it this way, but it just don't work for me, brother.
And actually, there may be something else to talk about with that after this, but let's go back to this audio.
There you go.
And Tony doesn't make them do it. And so, there's a lot of this. And, people aren't going to come forward and talk about it publicly. They will someday. This is one of those things where people will say I'm wrong now. And then, someday people are going to talk and you'll realize I hear about this every single day.
Yeah, by the way, we've said that in the past. One day you guys will all realize that we've been telling the truth about this. Now they're using that.
Well, if he's been hearing about it for months, why had he been talking about it? Did they hear about the impending war in Europe for months before they started reporting into papers?
And, trying to put together these shows is just a whirlwind of, will this person do this? They don't want to. What can we do? Will you do it? Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of frustration. And, there's also injuries that he deals with. And no, there are not shows put together a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance. The days of long-term booking, they're gone. He has an idea You know, I'm sure he had a card for the pay-per-view. But as far as like week to week, how they get there, every week is like, what are we going to do this week? You know, he wants to do things, but people don't want to go along with it. People are hurt, whatever. And
Somebody give me a historical example where.
Oh, good Lord.
There it is.
People's feelings are hurt, it sounds like, more prevalently in AEW than their physical injuries. But, I mean, it's not like he's making this up, Alvarez here, because he doesn't want to be saying this because it kind of, you know, goes against what Uncle Dave's mission in life has been for the past few years. And I'm sure he takes no pride in saying it, but if you have actual open eyes, that's why we've been saying it, because you can see it. And we're not even, you know, talking to all the stooges that Alvarez talks to over there. It's just visually observable, right? In the naked public eye.
Yeah, his stooges are a few years behind ours.
Can you have a naked eye in public? Is that against any kind of law?
No, I think that would work.
Okay, I didn't know whether, did you have to cover the retina with a pasty or anything?
You know, again, it's two different things. The idea that people are upset because they're going to the building and then they don't work, I can understand that, even though they're being paid. And with AEW and all the injuries, you probably do want, at times, all hands on deck or people nearby that can move. But the frustration of things getting changed because someone says no, they won't do it, and Tony always caves to that. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, obviously, that is against the principle of the whole wrestling business, which is, you know, if you're going to be a fucking wrestler, you got to do what the booker tells you to do. Of course, if there was ever an instance, I guess, where mutiny may be justified, because it's Tony Khan asking them to do shit. So you can imagine what some of the stupid shit is that he wants them to do that they won't do when you see some of the stupid shit that shows up on television, right? And so I can understand somebody, or even a number of people, wanting to pull the mutiny card, like, fuck that, you know, and hang Tony from the highest yardom in the British fleet. But you can't run a business that way, as we are observing, because even if it's rotten, he's the boss. Guess what? You know, you took the billionaire's money, and now you've got to work for the fucking billionaire. And yes, probably most of the shit he wants you to do is stupid, but that's what you're supposed to be doing.
See, they're hearing it now from their sources. So they're talking about it still with kid gloves on. Well, we've always said from day one, you could have issues with people, you could recognize the problems that people are behind the scenes, whatever it is. The true problem isn't Jericho or the Bucks or Omega or CM Punk or Cody or anyone else. It's Tony Khan. Tony is not someone made for this kind of position, despite his love of pro wrestling. We're willing to come out and say that out loud. We're willing to admit, because Dave Meltzer in ultra defense mode of anyone who points out that Tony's father is a billionaire, and that may have helped Tony get anywhere in life. Dave's attacking them and pointing out that Vince McMahon had a dad too, or whatever the fuck he's saying. But until you acknowledge that the problem is the top, it's the leadership, and then you can acknowledge every rung under it that's fucked up, and that has been fucked up from day one, from the legal department to the wrestlers causing trouble in the back. It all comes from Tony Khan. You got to call it out. Until you call it out, you're not really saying anything. You're just trying to send him a message so that he makes your friends happy.
And, you know, then also the talent they have been conditioned in this modern era that they're actors, movie stars, making a movie, TV stars doing TV, entertainers, however the fuck they think of themselves, that the director should be, you know, consulting with them on their part and etc. It's fucking wrestling. And as much as I hate to take any slack away from Tony Khan or take any fucking responsibility away from him, while he's a bad booker, a lot of them are bad fucking wrestlers because they got to either go over this shit or fucking micromanage it or fucking rehearse it or goddamn think and dwell on it or write their material and workshop their whatever the fuck. And they want to know, a week from Tuesday before the taping, the exact plan for their 6-minute fucking squash match or whatever. That's why I was telling you the other day on the phone, again, until really the modern era, the late 90s, when the television production just got so ridiculously complicated and big from the major companies and everything that, it necessitated it from a technical standpoint, everybody getting there early. All that shit you see on YouTube with the Horsemen and Dusty or the 80s WWF stuff, the guys got to a taping an hour before bell time, and they looked on the wall and they saw where they were in the order of events, and the booker or the booker's representative came over and said, hey, we want to do this. You're going to have 12-minute whatever the fuck. Talk about this, do that. And and that was normal. You would know.
They weren't afraid then, and I'm not saying this is a legitimate problem that it should cause us. The word is that Tony's afraid of booking leaks. And that's one of the reasons why no one knows anything, is because of all the problems AEW has, that's the one he's concerned about. His ideas leaking before they get to be on TV.
Well, I don't know whether his ideas would leak or just trickle, maybe drip. And that's something else too. These goddamn blabbermouth fucking wrestlers. In those days that I was just talking about, the guys didn't. The main guys, Flair knew when he was going to have a big match or an angle with Dusty, they'd discuss ahead of time. Or obviously, if you were a champion of some prominence, they would tell you out of respect the day that you were dropping it, and you would have input and blah blah blah. But we did so much TV and all that stuff. You didn't need to know all that shit in advance because a lot of it you were going to make up anyway. We were not being overproduced and overwritten. And so you need not only a booker that commands respect and that the guys will follow willingly with some discussion on the fine points of what they're asked to do until they, smooth the corners off and come to a agreement instead of wholesale mutiny. But on the other side, you need talent that is experienced enough and good enough to take the basic guidelines from the booker instead of a goddamn written script or a fucking step-by-step, blow-by-blow, written down match skit. You take the concept, the talent, and run the play, as Dutch Mantel used to say, and execute it and get it over. And it takes both sides. And unfortunately, because Tony's the shits as a booker, and he's chosen in many positions questionable talent, and he's let some that he had go in favor of some that he ain't got who stayed because they ain't got talent. Boom, you've got a mess. And this is what this is. But some of the great matches that people would watch or remember of the, whatever their childhood fandom was, 60s, 70s, especially 80s TV era on YouTube and 90s Attitude Era, were the bookers sitting down and going, here's what we need to fucking get. What do you guys got? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're going to go there, and I'm going to agree to that, and you guys do that. Boom. And if it's planned a week from Tuesday every step of the way, then by the time you get there and do it, you're sick of it. That's why there's no spontaneity.
And that's obviously a problem. A lot of these guys have a schedule, and it's the world of wrestling now, whether they're on the indies or here. You can plan out a match in advance. You have time, who you're going to work with next month or next week, and you can do that. AEW, the wrestling style they promote may be that style, but the TV show really is better fit for people who can call it in the ring and do something because of the nature of it.